Teachers all across the country face the same nagging questions day in and day out.
Can I use the restroom?
Can I use the restroom?
Can I use the restroom?
Can I use the
Restroom. Can I use the restroom?
Can I use the restroom?
Can I use the restroom?
Use the restroom?
Can I use the restroom?
Those simple words are enough to make a teacher cringe, especially when heard day in and day out. Student requests to use the restroom have a negative impact on the learning environment. When a student makes a request to use the restroom, they often stop instruction or cause some type of interruption. The teacher has to stop what they're doing and call on that student only to find out they need to go to the restroom. In the meantime, the other students have their learning interrupted. Therefore, restroom requests impede student learning, not only for the person asking, but for the other students as well. For that reason, I chose to focus my action research on student requests to use the restroom. Currently, I am completing my student teaching in a middle school special day class. When I started at the beginning of the school year, I noticed that a lot of students asked to use the restroom. At first, this didn't seem to bother my master teacher. However, about a few weeks after I started, these constant requests began to irritate him. Unfortunately, once I began taking over the teaching, the request increased even more. During my 2 science classes, 25% of the students made requests to use the restroom. My plan of action was to implement a new restroom policy. First, I made Restroom Pass templates on my computer. Then I made enough copies so that all the students could have 2 passes. Next, I talked to my students about how the constant request to use the restroom hinders everyone's learning. We discussed appropriate times to use the restroom, such as before or after school, and during break and lunch, and during passing periods. I proceeded to explain the new restroom policy to the class. I told them that each student will get 2 restroom passes until the end of the semester, which was only 3 weeks away. I told them that if they used both passes before the end of the semester, they would have to stay in class during break. However, if they still had their restroom passes at the end of the semester, they would be able to pick 1 treat per unused restroom pass. I then gave each student 2 restroom passes and had them write their names on them. I suggested that they keep their passes in their science folders, which remain in the classroom. I told them that if they lose their passes or misplace them, I will not replace them. I was not too surprised by the results. After implementing the restroom policy, student requests to use the restroom decreased significantly. Prior to the new policy, the students' requests averaged about 4 per period. That amounts to 25% of the students asking to use the restroom in 1 class period. The first week following the new policy, only 1 student requested to use the restroom the entire week. During the second week, the number of student requests was 5. During this study, 10% of the students made requests to use the restroom. With the implementation of the restroom passes, student requests to use the restroom dropped 15%. There are several conclusions that can be drawn from this study. First, students might not really have to use the restroom when they ask. I had 1 student who requested to use the restroom, but when I asked for one of his passes, he simply said, "Oh, never mind, I don't really have to go to the restroom." Furthermore, when forced with the consequence that they might lose their break time, students are more apt to choose to use the restroom before class starts. For example, many students made the choice to go to the restroom during lunch or break, or to hold their restroom passes for a time that they really might need to use them. Another inference that could be made is that students might have held on to their passes because they wanted to receive the treat or the reward at the end of the term. This study just goes to show how a small change can make a big difference.